Welcome to any replayers. If you're a replayer, don't forget you can still participate. You can tap on the screen for hearts while you're watching the replay if I say anything clever or interesting or helpful. And you can of course participate on Twitter and follow me at joannazarach and Snapchat at joannazarach. And you can ask me questions, and 10 seconds is or you can write them or you can do a 10-second video. So anyhow, for everybody else that's joining live, Sandeepa, hi Christy. Let's see who else do we have on here? Getting out some web viewers. Hi. For anybody that's joining live and anybody new to me, twice today, I know. It's a very interesting conversation I just had, so I wanted to share some insights from that. But if you're new to me, Joanna Zarach, and I do a couple of broadcasts right now. So I do a daily, 7 days a week, Money Habits broadcast at 10 a.m. Chicago time, Central time. Why is it every day? Because money never sleeps, and we should think about money just a little bit every day. So I give you some ideas, encouragement, tips, answer questions on those as well. And I do Money Matters. Welcome to Money Matters. You are now participating in a Money Matters broadcast. So twice a week, I dive a little bit deeper into a money topic. And it's a different topic. I've covered a bunch of different things. Oh, why Bernie Sanders doesn't work. Why he doesn't work, he's a politician, so one could argue whether he works or not. So for Money Matters, and he doesn't work, he talks a lot. He advocates for people. So for socialism, it's very possible in some. I'm from Poland, so communism definitely doesn't work. Socialism, it's not as motivating as capitalism, let's just say. So we participate in a capitalist society. We're definitely going to be talking. Oh no Donald Trump supporters here. Sorry. So what I want to talk to you guys about today, so Money Matters, is what does it mean to become an investor? When you decide that, when you make that big leap, I think that there is actually a hard step, and there's not a ton of resources that make it easier. So I want to talk a little bit about, like, once you decide to become an investor, like, how does that actually happen? Like, what do you do? And so I want to talk about, like, some specifics and maybe even answer some questions, and talk about a conversation I just had earlier today about a gap that I think is there, and maybe that we need to do something about it. And I think, Christy, you might also relate. So what's an investor? So once you decide you want to become an investor, right? Because it's a decision, right? And I think some people fall into investing where you go, okay, I'm going to sign up for a 401k plan, and all of a sudden you're an investor, but you don't realize it. You're not, like, actively. So what I'm actively investing. And I don't talk about stock trading. I'm just talking about a mindset. Like, what is an investor when you say, you know what, I'm going to commit, my big five, income, taxation, investments. This is number 3. So becoming an investor is actually the process of caring about this topic and learning about how your capital can generate more income in the future. And so specifically talk about stock market investing. Why? Because that's the most easily available type of investing. It's not the only type of investing. So we'll talk a little bit about what are the other types of investing. But what is an investor? Again, the definition I want you to think of as an investor is someone who puts their capital at risk to generate return. So you have to first have capital, which is money that you don't need to spend on yourself. So you need to take that capital and you need to put it at risk. And so what does it mean to put your money at risk? It means that put your money somewhere where the return is uncertain. Right? And there's a various degree of risk. There's no such thing as risk-free, by the way. Even if you keep your money in the bank and 10 years later you come back and it's still $10,000, if there was inflation, you happen to, not buy as much with that money. So I think that, like, when people think of, like, financial vehicles that have no risk, they don't actually think it all the way through. Every financial vehicle, including cash in your mattress, has risk. It may not have immediate risk, like short term. You would think, like, oh, tomorrow, I can buy this with $10 today, and I can buy this same thing with $10 the next day. But if you wait a year or two and you still have the $10 in your pocket and you go out, if you, like, went away for a while and you came back and a time capsule and you went to the store, you'd be like, wait a minute, I thought I could buy, milk, eggs, and bread, and, a 6-pack of beer for this $10, and you find out that you're only buying bread and milk. So money loses its value. So that's why I think it's so important for people to embrace becoming an investor. And by embracing means learn what it means and how to do it, right? And care about it. When you care about something, you take time out of your day to attend to it. This is when I talk about money. If you care about money, you take time out of the day to take care of it, to look after it. Same with investing. Again, you don't have to be obsessive. You don't have to take any action, but you just kind of like get this feel of, I'm an investor, and I'm going to, when someone says, oh, let's talk about stocks, your ears perk up. You say, you know what, this is interesting. This is important. I need to know this. Economic news. This is interesting. This is important. I need to know it. So I want you to once you think about it, think about yourself as an investor, and you make the next step. Now, I think this is where the system breaks down a little bit, because when you decide to do investing and you're like, okay, you may already be an investor. You may be in a 401k or some other plan. Maybe your parents gave you some stocks. I don't know, like you may be a happenstance investor, but you don't know what to do with it, right? But let's just say you one day decide, okay, I'm going to have an IRA or an investment portfolio, right? And you say, okay, what does it take? So the first thing I always tell people is find out, this is US-centric, but maybe other countries too, is there a tax-deferred or tax-advantage account that's available to you, right? So I always point people to the very same place. Everybody started in the same place, tax-advantaged accounts. Now, what's nice is that there are a lot of custodial people, which means they oversee these accounts because these are government mandated. So what you need to find is a place for you to open an IRA. Now, it's been a while when I've considered it, because once you make a decision, you're more likely to stick with it, right? So you don't need to really do a ton of research. I know some people open an IRA in a bank. They just put in a bank account. Like, it'll stay there, it'll preserve that value, but it won't grow, right? And you still get the tax advantage. I always encourage people to open the IRA somewhere where they can purchase stock. And by stock, I mean mutual funds. So, I recommend Vanguard. So what do? You say, okay, I'm going to open an IRA, find out what you qualify for under the tax code. If you're not sure, you can ask me. We can go through and we can check, and it's income-based. The rules are, they're on the IRS website. They will tell you if your income, and if you are part of a qualifying plan, it'll tell you where to invest. If you have a 401k at work, I would say go there first, because that's actually going to be like a tons easier for you to get started. So the hardest thing about investing, by the way, is getting started. Once you start, once you take an action, once you open an account, once you are an IRA owner, once you've picked a stock, I'm telling you, it's going to be 10 times easier to do the next step. So everyone needs to have a goal of becoming an investor. And again, you may already be an investor but not have taken any active part to learn about it. We'll talk about that. But first, let's assume you have nothing. So find a tax-favored account, find your favorite custodian. And so why do I recommend Vanguard? Okay. And there are some Fidelity fans there. Nothing against Fidelity. It's a perfectly good organization. Vanguard has the lowest cost funds. That is, I'm pretty sure that's an indisputable fact that's been studied and talked about and written about. So that's why I go with Vanguard. And it may be a little bit bare bones. Like, there's no Vanguard office you can go to. There's probably a Fidelity office. The more offices and the more people you see that are trying to help you with your product, the higher the price, because all those services cost money. So when I talk about self-service investing, I really mean like that's just you and your friends like myself who are willing to help you. Say, okay, like do your job, do your work, but if you're stuck, let's figure out how you move to the next level. So Vanguard is self-service. So which means you have to do the work. Why? Because you're not paying for the other 10 people to help you out. And if you need that kind of, if you feel like I'm not going to be able to invest until I have that, that's fine too. Just accept that there's going to be a little bit higher price with that. And by a little higher price means a little bit less money for you in the long term. But if it's going to remove the barrier for you to get started with investing, by all means. So, okay. Once you open that IRA, you put your money in, you're going to have to pick your mutual fund. There's so many choices. Okay, here's a conversation. I just spent, you're like, if you ever wonder how I spend my time, I just spent 3 hours on Skype with a woman in France that has sort of a similar mission, or had over time a similar mission, is to teach other people investing. And she's done investment clubs, and she's talked to people, and she's encouraged them to invest, and she's been investing since she was, in her early 20s as well. So to her, it was like, of course, investing's easy. And then she recognized, she was advising a friend to open an account, and it's the same thing happened. She opened an account, and she was presented with this barrage of choices. Of funds, and she didn't know how to navigate it. She didn't even know what those composition was, because whenever you do something for the very first time, it's so much more difficult, and it can be very intimidating. So give yourself the time it takes for you to learn that, for you to absorb the information, because if you don't give yourself the time, you're going to get stuck, and you're going to get discouraged, and you're going to get intimidated. Whereas someone who's been doing it for a long time, I go, oh, it's easy. Except when I go to do it and I go, oh yeah, I remember, like I have to get all the information. I have to look it up. I have to get all of the stuff, maybe pick a spreadsheet like where I make my notes. I got to make my notes, and I got to pick the stocks. So that's the next thing. And then you may want to, over time. So if you pick up a fund that you like, just keep contributing to it, year over year. Make a plan, and maybe then by the time you've done it once, the next time the researching is going to be easier. So if you want to add another fund to your portfolio, you just kind of go through the same steps. It may be like a year later, and you may struggle a little bit with like remembering what you did. So one of the things that I would advise to you, because if you're self-directed investor, you're going to have to do that yourself, is to just like make notes about what it is that you did. You say, look, here's how I I picked my fund, and it occurred to me that I should do that too. And then make a little instruction booklet on how to do that. And even like, what if I just went through like the top 10 Vanguard funds that I think are reasonable, and just give them a description, like in plain English? Because that's one of the things that's really missing, is that the financial information requires, the prospectus requires all of this stuff to be put in, and it's intentionally confusing. I know it's meant to be helpful, but it's so filled with financial jargon that like no one wants to read that. Expense ratio. So the expense ratio is typically it's the amount of money that fund costs, right? So when that, like, let's say, I'll use bigger numbers. So let's say a fund returned 10% in their stocks, and it's a 1% expense ratio. That means 1% for the fund, 9% for you, right? So an expense ratio is just the how much the fund costs over the total holding of the funds, and so that's the percentage which you're going to pay. I think that's what you're asking, but I'm not sure, because there's a PE, this price earnings ratio. So the expense ratio is just what how much it costs, right? It's the price of the fund, right? So you're going to have a return is what you expect, but you're going to have an expense ratio, which is the cost. And it's not the only, like, there are other costs that may be associated, and they're named differently. Like Vanguard doesn't have a lot of them, so I don't pay attention, but I know other funds have like other fees structured in them, and like sometimes you have to like try to add them up, and it's so unclear that you're never going to get a right answer, and if you try to ask them, they probably won't be able to tell you either. So that's why I feel like Vanguard is the most transparent, and they have one number, and they don't have like load funds, they don't have like redemption fees and all these other fees, which I think can get really add up really quickly. So I can't really tell you the other funds, like if they have all these other fees, how much it is in total, because I just follow Vanguard. Okay. So IRAs, one of the other places that people like getting started is if they are saving for their kids' education. So maybe they're not like motivated or quite understand their own retirement area, but they want to have a 529 plan. So again, like go to your states, fill out the information, and again, you're going to have to fill out the You're going to have to make a selection. Once again, make a selection that's the lowest cost. So if there's an option to say, look, we're going to do it for you, there's usually a cost associated with it. So again, I encourage you to pick the lowest cost for the investments that you're going to make. Okay, as I was thinking about it, and I said, well, why is investing important, and why do I harp on it? Why do I give people the encouragement to become a self-service investor, which means to keep as much control of your portfolios as you can? I think the low cost is a huge part of it, longer term. But here's some of the things that I want you to think about of why is investing and becoming an investor important. Okay, because if you are an investor, you all of a sudden have a place to put your money outside of just your immediate environment. So, and I mean, it sounds strange, but having somewhere for your money to go to, like having a place where it belongs, like in your investment portfolio, it gives you a different, like all of a sudden you start seeing the world differently. I mean, like sound crazy, like you're putting on rose-colored glasses, but you start going, well, you know, here is where I want to spend my money on investments, right? All of a sudden you want to buy stocks, right? You're like, oh, I want to, market, and I talk about investing during this such a volatile down market, like, the market can be pretty depressing for people who have money in the market right now. It's just kind of up and down, but trickling. It's like the lowest it's been in a long time, people. And I think that like right now is when you should feel empowered, because if you didn't invest over the last couple of years, like you didn't lose money. So all of a sudden, like get in here, get in on a lower, at a lower price point. It's great. And so I don't want you to get discouraged that when you put in money now and like you check in a week later and it's gone down. You're like, oh my God, I had $2,000. Now I have $1,980, right? It's to really give you confidence that over long term it'll work out. But again, investing, it gives you somewhere to put your money and outside of your daily life. So it's like it takes away this idea of, well, I have money, what do I do with it, right? And like people go and spend it. They're like, oh, I'm going to have a budget for this or that. Let's take a fancy vacation. And when you're an investor, you have a purpose for your money. And thank you for the hearts. The other thing is that when you have money invested, it grows. It's away from you, and you don't have to take any more actions. Like once you commit to investing and you start putting that money and you go through all those steps of opening your accounts up and setting up the systems like the transfer, putting your bank information. And once you do all that startup, all of a sudden, that money's in there and you're not doing anything with it, right? It's there. And, it's a little bit set it and forget it. Again, when you want to research another fund, you can buy it, but you don't have to do anything more with it, right? It's going to grow. It's going to be there. Thank you. And it's going to just sit there, right? It's your, and again, I talk a lot about wealth creation besides just retirement planning, because retirement planning is just getting to a point where you're just like, where you're enough and then you can start spending. And wealth building takes a different perspective. So when you invest, the money will outpace inflation, so you will preserve your buying power. And preserving your buying power is really, really important. I think this is what like Warren Buffett talks a lot about, why you need to be invested in the market, because if you just have, because what things cost today, they'll be more expensive in 10 years and 20 years and 50 years. And even when you're retired or getting close to retirement, it's so important to be an investor and understand that and keep investing. Because if you're like, oh, I don't want to lose any of my money, I'm just going to pull it all into like bonds or something low yielding, and all of a sudden you might see your purchasing power go down. And again, we've grown up in a super low inflationary period, guys, in the U.S. If you're in a higher inflationary environment, your cash can become worthless, like really, literally worthless. And so being in a market actually protects you from risk. So again, all capital is at risk, but think of the market as protecting you, not just like losing money, but it protects you in the long term because you're investing in in companies that are built to deliver a good and to extract value from that. And you're participating in it. You're a part owner of those companies. So as long as there's a need for those services and goods, right? That's why like a lot of the boring companies make a lot of money. Like garbage removal, like concrete making, like, people who lay roads, like the things that you see around. Like, I know that glitzy things are more attractive, but sometimes you just generic, like things we need to live will preserve your buying power. When you become an investor, it'll teach you more about money and the value of it. Because it's not, I know I love boring money. Like I'm boring. My investments are fairly conservative when you look at the whole scheme of things. But investing will teach you more about money. It'll force you to learn more about money. And that's when it's your money, all of a sudden you're going to be like, how's the stock market doing? Why? It's not because you need to take some action. You're just more curious. You become more curious about the world and the economy and the moves and global stuff. I know that's happened to me when I've gotten more active. I'm like, I check the stock market every day. I don't do anything. I just like, is it up or down? Oh, look, it's up. Oh, look, it's down. Right? It gives you like a sense of where it's at. No, I don't trade at all. I buy and hold, and it's all mutual funds. I'm a conservative investor. I literally think that the power of investing is actually doing it, not what you do it in. So, and by that I mean investing. To invest, you have to create a difference between your income and your spending and expenses. They're called the buffer, and it's that act of spending less, significantly less than you earn, that really creates the power of investing, because you're putting that money away from you, so it's not for spending and it's growing. And that's the act. It is actually much more valuable than any investing knowledge, than any insider information, right? It's the idea that you're gonna be an investor and taking the money and putting into these vehicles. And then obviously the tax, if you can take advantage of the tax breaks, that's huge, which is like, it's more impactful than people realize. And, but it teaches you more about money and the value of it. I use these examples of like how much it takes to make money off of investments at an 8 to 10% return, annual return, which is the average stock market. That's like a good stock market return. It's been as low, depending which decade, or like if you took 5-year averages, some 5-year averages didn't make that much if you had a big crash. So you can't expect, I don't expect more than 8 to 10%, right? At that return rate, if you have $100,000, it only makes $25 a day, right? This is why when you start understanding the principle and your dividends, right, the principle and the return, and what it is that you want to use to support your lifestyle in the future when you're trying to build financial freedom, financial independence. If you're just going to live off the interest or the dividends, whatever the return on your investment, every $25 that you plan on spending a day, you'll need $100,000 in your investments on average. So that's why, the earn more, spend less, and create a bigger buffer. That is like literally what's going to help you achieve the financial independence that you would want, a financial freedom. So I don't know what that is. And so that's also like having a deeper understanding, because when you're watching your money, return money, you understand a little bit better about, what's the return really mean? Like 8%, what does that mean? Can you eat 8%? What can you buy with 8%, right? You don't go to the store and they're like, well, it's going to be 3%, right? They like ask for an actual amount of money. So always know about what is the investment going to give you? Are you planning to live off just the dividends, or is it going to be a withdrawal rate? Like they talk about 4% withdrawal rate. So this is why. Like once you decide to become an investor, I know that that's just the first step, and it's like a first step on a longer journey. And I want to encourage you and help you understand that yes, there's going to be a big learning curve, but once you do it once, the next time around it's going to be a lot easier. And, so to go into Vanguard, go and open that account, transfer the money, pick a mutual fund. All those steps could take time. And, but once you do it, like I guarantee you, the next year or the next time you have a little bit more money to invest, it's going to be a lot easier, right? And, yes, automatically reinvest dividends. That's right, because you're trying to grow that money. That's right. Automatically always reinvest your dividends. Otherwise, it's just going to create like money that's sitting around, and it's either like you have to do something with it, right? So try to automate some of those decisions. And yeah, I reinvest all my dividends. All my dividends just go straight into the whatever fund they're in. So they're usually rebuying more of that fund. And actually, when you get dividends and some long-term gains, and the stock is down, it buys it at a cheaper price. More stocks for you. So that's the lesson for today. I do think that like we need to get a little bit more specific on some of the stocks, on some of the stock funds. So I'm gonna have to start doing more research. I think I'm just gonna do Vanguard. I gotta commit, right? Like I committed to Mint. I think I'm gonna commit to Vanguard and go through. And every provider parallels the funds. Like there's a similar fund. So I want to talk a bit about. I think I'm gonna start. I know that like I need to recycle some topics, but I want to start like Money Matters 202. That's like a bit more advanced. You're welcome, and thank you for joining, Sandeepa. I appreciate you being on here and supporting me. I have Money Matters 202, and we dive a little bit deeper on some of those topics because I kind of want to bring you along, but I also want to like challenge myself to learn a little bit more. So yeah, I know. I was talking to this lady for a while, like how do I get this out? Like, was it workshops, right? Like online courses, some way to build this knowledge and get it out. But I want to do Money Matters 202. So on Friday, I'm really excited to talk about lending clubs. So there's alternatives form of investing outside of the stock market. The one people talk about the most, real estate. It's a good start. It gives me practice, and it gives me like, I write down topics because I'm even like, what am I going to talk about? I'm forcing myself to do it. I'll actually makes me more creative about thinking what topics. But I'm going to talk about lending club on Friday because it's my favorite new. I've been investing in it since 2013, and I want to talk about it as an alternative form of investment. What I've learned from it. It's been hugely helpful in learning. Yeah, wherever else you're teaching. Oh yes, I will. And so the lending club platform, I'm gonna actually go through it. I'm gonna go through and show you guys how I do things on my account and explain it and how peer-to-peer lending works. And I like these alternative form of investments that are available outside of the stock market. Obviously, the most common one are property buying and investing, which I admit, besides buying and owning a house, I know nothing about, or I know not as much about through my experience. I know a lot. I've learned a lot from others. And then, obviously starting your own business and investing in yourself and investing in a business, but also making sure that works for you, like that the business is actually going to generate some value, both in the immediate term and the long term. And we'll talk about that in some time future. But Friday, we're going to talk about Lending Club. I'm going to share with you guys my Lending Club methodology, what I learned from Lending Club, and how Lending Club works. And then, of course, every day. So that's on Friday at 5 o'clock, but every day I'll be here for Money Habits at 10 a.m. And tomorrow morning, if you joined this morning, we talked about money lying around. So tomorrow I'm gonna have to tell you all the different places that money hides for me and how I'm going to extract it. Whether it's gift cards, whether it's these tax favored accounts that are kind of need a claim form to be filled out, rewards, miles, taxes, all these places where you need to take some action to capitalize on your resources and the money laying around. So thank you for everyone for joining, and I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And again, if you have any questions, you can definitely find me on Snapchat or Twitter. And those are my two platforms that I'm working, especially Snapchat. I'm liking it. I don't have a big following, but it's like such a neat little place where you can just shoot a 10-second video to someone and have a conversation back and forth. And I think it's interesting. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye.